Thank you for joining. For those of you that don't know me, my name is Candace Kingston, and I work with small business owners who are really just trying to increase their leadership skills in their lives of themselves, and so that they are better able to lead others and basically increase their revenue while doing so. So this also helps them with focus and things like that. I'm not charging for this presentation, nor am I selling anything on this presentation. At the end, I can offer some different ways to work with me. If you're interested in hearing more about this, or if you have further questions, we can definitely talk about that. Also, if you're interested in joining my community, which is a newsletter I send out every once in a while, feel free to just type your email in the comments or send me a message if you don't want to put it in the comments. Hello, everyone. Hello, hello. Thanks for hopping in. Yeah, so I'm going to keep this, hopefully, I said long. I don't know how long it's going to go. I'll just try to keep rolling, let's put it that way. But yeah, if you have questions, feel free to mark it in the, or put it in the comments, and I will try to address those. But basically, we are all coming on this time. I was at a training on Thursday and Friday while the place where we were doing the training got notification that they were shutting down. So most workplaces are being closed down and asked to work remotely. And as far as your company might be, you might be working for yourself, but you also might be in a situation where you have a team under you. And I've been hearing from a lot of you that already have remote teams that need a little bit of help in this area. So I thought this was a little bit timely, especially since most of you will be starting this tomorrow. So I wanted to do the recording today, or record this today. And obviously, if you feel like, hey, this is actually a work thing, I'm going to do it on my work time, feel free to come back tomorrow and watch the recording. It'll be there. Okay, let's jump right in. Basically, there are 7 rules to managing a remote team. And I'm just going to go through the 7, and then at the end, again, if you have questions, we'll try to tackle those. So, top 7 rules for managing a remote team. Number 1 is to change your assumptions about work. The average of a company having at least some form of a remote team is about 73%. I think that's probably going to be 100% as soon as people start kicking into this issues we're going on, in our world today, and trying to reduce the spread of everything. So I think that number is going to be creeping up. The thing to remember is that work is not where you are physically, it is what you do. So it really doesn't matter whether you're sitting at home or you're in an office, there's work to be done and you're doing it, or you're part of the management team and you're trying to take care of the people who are performing those tasks and those projects or whatever it is that you do. So that's number 1, pretty simple. Number 2, we start to talk about communication. Now, in my coaching practice, I focus a lot on high energy, high energetic levels, basically a high consciousness. So being more aware of what's going on around you, and a big part of that is communication. Of course, that means asking more questions. This is something that will help open up discussion for your team members. Having like maybe a system where you're definitely emailing each person on your team 1 time per day, just to check in and say, hey, I'm here. Any questions, anything that I can help you with, I'm here for you. You just want them to constantly be aware that you are there, and able to jump in and help. But really, having the 1 email a day can also prevent micromanaging, so you're not emailing 100 times a day, right? Don't delay communications. This is really important when either you have a question for your team and you're just wanting to get some feedback from them about how things are going, or vice versa. Maybe they have an issue. You want them to know not to delay the communication channel, like process, because that's only going to make the matter worse if there's some kind of an issue that's preventing their work, and you really just want to stay ahead of that escalation. Another thought about communication is if your team is in another state or even city or country, just be aware of their issues going on there, especially in this time of coronavirus. Maybe they have a different kind of state lockdown, mandatory something going on. Stay abreast of what their news is where they live. This is also true for just in regular times when maybe you're talking to somebody from Australia or they're on your team and they're on the call. You're not going to wish everyone a happy Thanksgiving. Just being aware of who's out there, who's on the call, and where are they. Stay warm out there. Maybe they're in the middle of summer. So just things like that, being a little bit cognizant goes a long way, helps them feel appreciated and feel known and heard. Okay, so I have a little scenario, a little exercise I want to take you through, and this is well, anyway, I won't preface it, but I want you to listen to this scenario and then have some prompts for you at the end. So here's the scenario, and I am going to read it. I was returning home one night from eating dinner at a restaurant in my neighborhood. The weather was clear and traffic was light. As I rounded a curve in the 4-lane street, I saw what appeared to be a car accident in the roadway. I pulled up at a safe distance from the scene, surveyed the scene for hazards, and I quickly realized that I was the first one on the scene at a 3-car collision. The occupants from one of the cars had exited their car and were standing in the street. The occupants from the second car remained inside their car. And as I approached the vehicle with the occupants still inside, I was met by the driver of the other car, clearly upset and shouting that we have to get them out of there. While trying to calm him down, I looked inside the vehicle to find the driver and her infant child. The situation then became more complex when I discovered the driver did not speak English. The infant was in a car seat. However, the car seat had become dismounted and was displaced over the rear seat and into the cargo area of the hatchback car. The driver of the third car was found halfway out of the car with his head on the ground, bleeding. It was unclear whether or not he was alive. There was a deer that was hit by a car in the road as well. So now, I want you to take out a sheet of paper and a pen, or do this on your phone or whatever. I want you to write down, if you were the one to walk up upon this scene, you were the first one on the scene, what are the first 5 actions that you would take? And I'll just give you a minute to jot that down. Or think of them in your head, whatever. Okay, give it a little time. Do, 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 do. Okay, so you should have written down the first 5 actions that you would take as soon as you walked up on that scene, okay? And now I want you to imagine that you can ask some questions, whether you have somebody with you, maybe you're on the phone with 911 and the first responder, or the person is on the phone with you. Maybe you're getting a download from the universe. Whatever it is, you can ask 5 questions. What are those first 5 questions you would ask before doing anything? So go ahead, and I'll give you another minute to write those down. Okay, that's almost a minute. Now, we're actually not going to share these unless you'd like to list them in the comments. But the intention behind this is I really want to illustrate in this very real life situation, not one that I went through, but this is actually an exercise that first responders go through. They're given these kinds of questions and these kinds of obviously in the beginning examples, but what then becomes part of their job to assess a situation, right? And to take this chaos and to turn it into priorities. What do we do first? What do we do second? Now, maybe some of your questions were, who needs the most help that I can get to first? Or maybe your question is, who do I help first, right? Like when you ask questions, you can start to uncover the needs and really the priorities of, in our example today, the team around you. Who needs the most help? Who's got the most pressing issue going on? How do I triage the situation, right? To understand like what's most important. The more questions you can ask, the more clear you are of the current situation. And really, I said here, like even life-threatening situations, which as you're working with your team, probably not going to come up, but you never know. But this is definitely more important as you are working with a remote team to be able to ask more questions and just be super clear on everything that they're saying. When they say one thing, you can always ask a deeper probing question, like tell me more about that, or what do you mean by that, or how can I help? Okay, so number 3 in our top rules is to create team visibility in the company. This is really important when, when you're working as a remote employee, you often don't feel like you're being heard. Your voice is being heard, and definitely not that you're being seen, and you're probably being forgotten. So even when you call in to those conference calls and they say, oh, hi, how's it going, Candace? Then they forget you're on the call. So they never say like, Candace, what do you think, right? So as a team culture, we're just getting used to having remote people calling in. Maybe you work for a bigger company that this is more common, but definitely now in this time when everybody's remote, we don't want to forget about anybody, and we want to make sure that we're giving them the space and the opportunity to chime in, especially for people that are introverts and not likely to raise their hand or jump in, like myself. Yeah, so definitely giving them space. One way you can do this is to I don't understand my notes. One way you can do this is definitely acknowledging them by name on the call. And then there can be some activities you're doing on different conference calls. One of those is maybe to pair up different workers to collaborate. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later, but in this specific case, I was thinking you can pair up like field workers with in-office workers and get them to, even if it's just an icebreaker activity, it doesn't actually have to be work that they're doing, but just pairing up different people from different parts of the team that maybe wouldn't normally work together so that they can get to know each other and they can get to know people outside of their specific small cohort in the team. That was just an idea that I had. This can also be helpful when there might be some work situations or things like that, or a work project that you can pair up to work together. Well, like I said, we'll talk about that a little bit more later. Number 4 is to manage the goals and outcomes and not the tasks. So when we manage tasks, that just puts us in the position of micromanager, and it really makes us responsible for the outcome, which basically means we're babysitting. So we want to be in the position of empowering our team, and that way this accountability is not just left up to us. So there was a situation where I was at a conference, and every time we would break for, go on a break, they would say, okay, everyone, we're going to go on a 5 to 10 minute break. Let's just say 10 minutes and be back here at 2:10. Okay, go on a break. So all of the participants would go out on the break and go to the bathroom, get something, make a phone call, whatever it was. And then the leaders of the company would go out into the hallway and gather their teams. Hey, you guys, hey, break's over. Come on, everyone, come in. So everyone would sit down. And I was watching all of this happen and thinking, okay, there is like micromanaging at its best. Basically, they would never have to like hold themselves accountable or actually have that wherewithal to be watching time and know that the 10 minutes was over, because the leaders just their managers were going to go take care of them. So why do they even care? They know they're going to call us back in when the break's over, right? So I said, how about for the next break, the next time you do this, tell them, 10 minutes, tell them the time. We'll come back at 4:10 and then get started right at 4:10. So what happened was, of course, not many people were in the room. They started the presentation again, and surely, one by one, they started, kind of looking around saying, gosh, I think the break must be over. And they would come back into the conference room and sit down kind of sheepishly, like, oh shoot, why are we late? And guess what? It never happened again. Every single time, it was now up to them to hold themselves accountable to be on time, and they would make sure that they did it. They checked their time, their watch, they marked the alarm on their phone, whatever it was that would make it happen, because they didn't want to be looking like an idiot when they came back in. So if we micromanage, or if we do these things where we're setting up these expectations, they are never going to take the initiative. We cannot manage every single task like this, and it's just not sustainable. So the opposite of that, or the alternative, is that they just won't take the initiative to hold themselves accountable. And at the end of the day, accountability is about being responsible for yourself, not, oh, my mom said to do this, or my boss said to do this. So the other way to look at this is to think of your team like a team of bowlers, right? And you say to them, hey, okay, the end goal is just to knock down the 10 pins. I'm going to put up bumpers. These are the boundaries. These are the guidelines. And you can get the ball down there any way you want to. You can use one of those assist things. It looks like a little slide. You can sit with your legs spread out and roll the ball down. You can turn backwards and roll it under your legs, or you can bowl. However you want to do it, I really don't care. Just get it done, and then let me know when it's done, right? So giving them that autonomy to get the project done, or whatever the job is, get that done. And just get the pins down. All right, so I just said that holding yourself accountable is what accountability means being responsible for yourself. So number 5 is creating an accountability system. So just because people should be holding themselves accountable doesn't mean that they also need to be held accountable to you. So at the end of the day, you need to have that system, or you will be that system. So this can include some kind of weekly reports. You can set up some goals or some metrics that they need to fill in each week. And yeah, the first week they're going to be scrambling, like, oh my gosh, it's Friday. I told her I'd get this in and I haven't done it for each day. I better fill in these hours, or whatever it is. But as time goes on, they'll get more and more used to the system and better at doing it themselves. So this is also, that just makes it their problem, not yours, right? This is also an opportunity to set up some SMART goals. So don't change it for 90 days. You really want them to get into the routine, and having like 5 per employee or something at the most. Part of this can be behavioral goals. So for each employee, you would basically lay out a goal, have, you could have like, lay out the goal, lay out the details of what that goal is. And maybe, for example, this could be for the introverts, or for somebody on your team that just never reaches out for help. You could say, I want you to reach out to 2 people on the team every week. And so their number of people to outreach is 2, and then how many did they do? And then, send you the results, or whatever that is. That could be one of their goals. And then keep track of it and send the report back to you. It's not up to you to ask for the report, or to say, hey, everyone, turn in your reports. They just need to be in charge of that. There's a saying in leadership that's get on the balcony, right? And actually I was reading a parenting book, because I've got 3 teenage boys and now they're all home for 3 weeks. I was reading a parenting book, and it used the same expression, which I had just had in this talk I was working on, or presentation for you guys, and I had written that, get on the balcony, because I've heard that in leadership, and then I read it in the parenting, and it's so true. These are so paralleled. But get on the balcony. You do not need to be down there in the throes of everything that's happening. You want to be up on the balcony looking down, saying, okay, I can see what's going on over there. I can see what's going on over there. Okay, let's let's maneuver whatever you need to do. Let's move these things around to make it work. So anyway, I love that. I love that expression. But having that 50-foot level, not down on the ground. And then the other part of this is if you have a team of executives, or maybe you're above the executives, maybe you're the CEO of the company, or maybe you're the HR director and you want your executives to send you their team's hours or something like that, have them do like a monthly report. That might be a little bit more doable instead of a weekly metrics. Whatever that looks like. I mean, I don't know what that's going to be in your company, but having some clear expectations is going to be important. All right, so number 6, building a team community. So this is critical on building a tight-knit community, one that trusts each other, one that enjoys working together and gets good results and really just has good camaraderie as well. And this is going to come up mostly when you have your conference calls. So now that you're working remotely, it's probably a good idea to check in with them weekly, maybe daily, maybe have a kickoff morning meeting, usually at the office. And so now you need to have that on the phone. I would recommend something like Zoom or GoToMeeting where you can actually have some breakout rooms. So one idea for this is to have some kind of virtual water cooler set up. So it's just like a little time in the beginning of the call, and you could even say, come to the call 5 minutes early and we'll start at 5 after, or something like that, to give them a little bit of time to chit chat as they get on. And maybe you could go around the room and the virtual room and each person can say like one bad thing and one good thing that happened to them in the week or something like that, and ending on a good note, right? Ending on a high note. And that was from a training I did this past week. We used to do it around the dinner table a lot, but we don't really do it anymore. But having something where people are just having a minute to express. It doesn't have to be about work. It can be about personal, just whatever, just something to be heard. But definitely trying to end with the positives to keep that energy up. This can also be a good time to introduce new team members. Tell us a little bit about you, that kind of thing. The other idea for this is to have each person, maybe it's once a week or depending on how many times you do these calls, but maybe one team member can give a tour of their office. So doing a little virtual tour with their phone, showing around their office. This is a great way for people, and might be more important to do more than just once a week. Maybe it's not necessarily a tour, but maybe they just post a comment or something in the thread, and it just kind of writes a little bit about their situation and what things might come up. So maybe, for example, I would say, you know, I work from my house. I've got 3 teenagers, a husband, and a dog that sometimes barks. People might come to my door and ring the doorbell. Kids might come to the door and ring the doorbell incessantly until they realize I'm not going to come, so they come around to the side door to come in, and then they're loud coming in here after school and going to get snacks. And if I happen to be on a call, then people need to know that. That might happen. So just kind of letting people know I have a baby and it might wake up crying. I usually try to do my calls while it's napping, but there might be crying, or I have 3 roommates and I live in a tiny apartment in New York City. Whatever their situation might be, just being open and willing to share about that so that you know up front that these things might happen. And while you're sitting there on the call, if 3 dudes walk by, there's no distraction. You're just like, oh, that's John. He's in his apartment, you know, or whatever. You're not like distracted by it. Or the person might turn off their camera for a minute, or they might mute themselves the whole call, and you're wondering why that person isn't engaged. Really, they are. They're just trying to mute the background noise. So just knowing those things, I think, is a good thing up front. All right. Let's see. What else? I love the idea of icebreakers, like finding things that you have in common with each other, or you know, like 2 truths and a lie, or whatever those kinds of icebreakers are that you might do. That's something that you can do every few weeks, or maybe even just quarterly. It doesn't have to be every week. I'm the kind of person that I love those things. I could probably do them every day. Most people, not so much. So read the room and kind of see what your team likes. So that you're not just completely annoying them with your hokey ideas. Like the virtual office tour, which people might think is a little hokey, but I think is actually kind of useful. All right. Any comments? You guys are all here. This is awesome. I'm so impressed and happy. I don't think I've ever had this many people on a Facebook Live. Well, okay, I won't. I should not admit that. Thank you for being here. But feel free to post any comments or questions that are coming up for you. Or do you even agree with this? Is this even hitting home? Are you like, this is all crap, Candace? You don't know what you're talking about? Just let me know. I'd love to hear it. All right, so the other part about the calls and kind of creating this team feeling is to find times when you can allow the team members to have time to collaborate. So with Zoom, I love it because you can do breakout rooms. So you can actually, if you're planning to do that, a good idea for this is whether you have slides or even if you don't have slides, just in the beginning of the call saying, we're going to do breakout rooms, like Camilla and Lydia, you two are going to be together. Ira and Joe, you two are going to be together, right? List out the people who are going to be together and just sort of say it like, here's how it is. Otherwise, when it's time to do the breakout rooms, if you say, all right, everyone, find a partner and we're going to go into your room, that is like heyday or mayday or whatever you call it. It's a mess. Don't do that. Rather say up front how it's going to be, and that could be something you put on a slide, like here are the teams, just write this down or something, and when it's time, you'll know who to go to. That can be used for the icebreakers. They can come up with something and then come back and report to the team, or that can be used just for you know, we have this problem, how are we going to solve it? Go figure it out. Or we want to come up with 10 new article ideas, go write down 10 each and come back, you know, whatever your company is and how that's going to help you. But really, whatever is going to help make the meetings run smoother, try to do ahead of time, right? I know that's common sense, but something we don't always think about. And just remembering that it can be super lonely to work from home when you're used to all this interaction at work and you're not maybe even used to managing teams, let alone remote teams. So it's understandable that it's going to be tempting to make everything very task focused and have like a checklist and are you doing this? Are you doing this? Has this been done? Whatever. But really the most important thing is just to keep up the personal interaction and the rest will fall into place. So acknowledging the success of the team members by name and creating the forums for sharing ideas is going to be really helpful. All right, finally, number 7, not bad, 28 minutes. Okay, number 7 is about motivating them rather than moving them. So movement is just about using a carrot and stick approach, right? So that's all external stimulus. So when you have a carrot, you're dangling it in front of the donkey. When you have a stick, you're hitting it. So you're either motivating them by, look, you're going to get this thing, or you're going to get to leave early today, or whatever. And then hitting it is like, I'm going to dock your pay because you're not paying attention or whatever. You're not getting your work done. Those are all external stimulus. And while that can be motivating, when I was first in sales, I thought, oh yeah, I'm a carrot dangler. I love the rewards. I just love the rush of getting the sale because I know I'm going to get this reward or like extra money or whatever that was. But really at the end of the day, I knew that it was my intrinsic motivation that kept me going. So that's movement, sort of the external stimulus, versus motivation comes from the internal stimulus based on like pride and self-esteem and self-charged, that kind of thing. So creating leaders within your team to build ownership. This can be done by having, sorry, I kind of skipped part. I had this out of order. I'm going to change it. Hold on. Before we get to the leaders within the team, I was just wanted to point out that I like to talk about inspiration here because it's just as important, if not more, than motivation. Inspiring others by listening to them, being vulnerable so that they don't put you on a pedestal and they feel safe to open up. Inspiring them by caring and caring about them and challenging them. Those are the ways that you're going to get people to actually take action, and inspiring them by expecting the most out of them is going to really get your team pumped to take action. Okay, so creating leaders within the team to build ownership. This is a way you can maybe assign different roles than what is usually happens at the office, and have one person run like the intro to the meeting, then you run the main part, and then maybe one person wraps it up. This is a way to help people get engaged and listen for their turn and not fall asleep. So giving them different roles can be important. Maybe one person takes notes. Also giving them some decision opportunities and then some immediate positive feedback and recognition. So when they do step up and they offer to be a volunteer, or hey, I'll do that part, just really acknowledging that and giving them some kudos for that. Because whenever you catch somebody doing something right is when you really want to give them some recognition. Also, a quick tip is to use the word because so that your feedback is really genuine. So hey, Carrie, great job, like that's one way. But if you say, hey, Carrie, great job, because you really opened up and volunteered to run the beginning of the meeting, that was amazing, something like that. Okay, so that is all I have. I have those 7 steps. So let me just kind of go through them again really quickly. Number 1 is to change the assumptions of work, just remembering that work is not where you physically are, it's what you do. Having communications, always asking way more questions and never delaying on the communication is really important. Number 3 is to create a team visibility in the company, just acknowledging people and knowing that they want to be recognized, they want to be heard. Number 4 is to manage the goals and outcomes, not the tasks. That kind of goes back to letting them bowl their own way, however they want to do it, as long as they complete the project or the task. And then creating an accountability system, otherwise you will be that system. That's number 5. Number 6 is to build a team community. So giving lots of space on these meetings, conference calls, and really allowing team members to collaborate and avoid feeling isolated. And then finally, number 7 is to motivate rather than move them, or like I say, inspire them. So any other questions, anything coming up for you guys? I'd love to hear from you, but feel free to comment later and I'll come back into this live and see if there's any other comments. But I really just want to thank you for joining me today. It's awesome. And I know we're all in this crazy, uncertain times, and hopefully this gives you a little bit of sense of control for what's coming up in the next few weeks. And as I said before, the most important thing is really choosing how you are showing up as a leader and the energy that you're bringing to your team, because at the end of the day, when you have that self-awareness, it's how you're going to be able to lead your team to have their own self-awareness and basically raising the consciousness of everyone all around you so that you can lead at a higher energetic level. Not to get too woo-woo, but that's what this all comes down to, because really it's not woo-woo, it's all scientific about who you are, how you're showing up in the world is going to have an impact on your team. So most business owners who come to work with me are either coming for one of 2 reasons. They either don't know who they are, what's super important to them as far as their values go. They're unclear of that, and so they're not ever leading in the right direction because they don't have that sense of self. Or they might not be clear on where they're going. What is their end goal or vision for their life or their job? Like, what do they want out of this world? And if you don't have a vision or an end destination, it's going to be really hard to get there. Just like when you put in your GPS, like on your maps, if you don't have that end destination, your GPS Siri is not going to know where to send you, right? So we need to have some direction in our lives in order to get there. That can always change along the way, but having a starting point is always a good idea. And that's something that I help people with. I help them gain that clarity on who they are, what they want at the end of the day, and then how to get there. So what are the roadblocks that are getting in their way, and how can we get over those as well? This is I just said I wanted to let you know that I work with people in one of 2 ways. Either we do one-on-one coaching for 12 weeks and then month to month after that, or I do a group coaching program, which is a series of lessons, and then we also have time for group coaching calls where you're able to ask questions and get them answered. So you still get access to me, it's just not as much as the one-on-one coaching. So feel free to tag your team members in the comments below or share this with them. And I will take this video down shortly because I'm going to spruce it up practice it a little bit and re-record it for my group coaching program. These are things that my clients come to me about all the time. There are often tactical type of like strategic questions they have around leadership, like how do I increase my productivity? How do I fix my time management? All of those kinds of things, which we do talk about and I help them with, although I will let you in on a little secret. It's not usually those issues that people have trouble with, it's what's underneath that. So most of you know that procrastination is not about being lazy or just not wanting to do the thing. There's a reason why you're not wanting to do the thing. It could be like a fear of failure, something else bigger that's holding you back from that action. So we talk a lot about that in my coaching. Anyway, I do like to help with tactical things, but also understanding that there's sometimes an emotional attachment to what's going on in your work life. So yeah, let's see, taking this down. Really, that's about it. So if you enjoyed this presentation, I would love it if you would just give me some hearts or likes or thumbs up or something and let me know. And definitely any questions you have now or later as you're watching this again, because I'm sure you're going to 100 times, just let me know. And feel free to reach out in Messenger. Any questions you have, I'd love to hear from you guys. So thank you so much. Enjoy the rest of your Sunday. Go take a nap because tomorrow it's all gonna change. No, I'm just kidding. Okay, have a great day, you guys.